While many headlines are focusing on the infighting and the inflammatory tweets, a huge policy change is expected to happen within hours in Washington. The head of the Environmental Protection Agency says he will sign a repeal today of the Clean Power Plan. That's an Obama-era regulation of greenhouse gas emissions meant to combat climate change. The Trump administration says the rule costs jobs and unfairly picks winners and losers when it comes to energy production. The Obama White House said the plan would prevent deadly health problems. Well, let's get some perspective now from Andrew Revkin. He's the senior reporter for climate change at the ProPublica, a non-profit organisation focused on investigative journalism. Great to have you with us, Andrew.
Thanks for having me on.
The Environmental Protection Agency head, the man charged with protecting the environment, said, and I quote, "The war on coal is over." Today he's signing this proposal to roll back the Clean Power Plan. What's your reaction?
Well, it's a long journey. The climate problem, unlike traditional pollution problems where you could stick a filter on a smokestack and the air would be cleaner, climate has this time scale that makes both solving the problem and perhaps contributing to it very hard to do in a short time scale. He's doing what was long anticipated, which is going through it's a years-long process to propose rolling back and replacing a regulation. The Obama administration, it took years to get it in place, and it's already in court anyway. So there's 23 states that are challenging it. Sort of that's the first step in the ladder, and there's other contexts as well. But it's kind of one step in a long journey, one way or the other.
What does this mean for the Paris Climate Accord and the upcoming climate change summit next month? Given President Trump has already said he would withdraw the US from the Paris Climate Accord, does this just cement his position?
I think it does. Yeah, I mean, most of what's happening is focused on domestic politics, for one thing. But and actually, I don't know if this will come up in the conversation with Tillerson. The State Department is already, I'm sure, getting geared up for the next round of Paris, which starts early November. It's just a couple of weeks away. In that context, it does just sort of say, you know, this administration is determined to go in a certain direction, and the United States commitments under Paris were all. The Clean Power Plan was one of the tracks to get toward those goals. There's also transportation, which the Trump administration is trying to roll back as well. But there's things that the President Trump already did really early that are probably more a threat to the Paris process. He has cut off the flows of funding, not just for the UN agency from the U.S. that supports that process, but also potentially the funding for developing countries to help them develop resilience to climate impacts. That could be the bigger kind of impact, and it's already happened.
When the Clean Power Plan was rolled out, the EPA said that up to 7,000 premature deaths could be prevented and 150,000 asthma attacks in children as a result of this plan. And when asked about that, the new head of the EPA, Scott Pruitt, said he was more focused on jobs. Obviously, there must be a lot of people disgruntled within the EPA right now.
Oh, you mean within the employees, the career staff? Oh, yeah. I mean, from day one, after the election, at ProPublica, we're receiving lots of emails and calls from within. The administration, just as they have at other agencies, has been trying to sort of tamp down public outflow of information from environmental agencies. You know, it's discouraging for those employees who have worked on this for a long time to see how easy these kinds of regulatory steps, which essentially are an end run around Congress, they're hard to sustain if there's a big shift in the White House, and that's what we're seeing now. And there are lifers in there, you know, lifelong career people who they're in kind of hunker down mode, kind of like a turtle drawing in its head and arms, and just the bureaucracy of the EPA does have an ability to kind of hold itself together. You know, for them, it's a tough time.
And of course, Europe depends on US exports of natural gas. How does that make it tougher for them to be tough on Donald Trump?
Well, in ProPublica earlier this year, when the administration announced the withdrawal from Paris, the plan, I wrote a piece. I had just been interviewing a key EU official at a meeting in New York City on sustainable energy, and he was very happy in the interview I had to say that the EU, the European Commission in this case, had met with Trump officials, and they were fast-tracking gas exports to Europe. And This gets to one of the complexities with climate policy. It doesn't exist in a vacuum, and as long as Europe is eager for natural gas from the United States, which is now abundant through fracking and being shipped out as LNG, it's harder for them to take a hard line against the Trump administration on other aspects of its climate policies. It just makes it tougher. Those realities, fossil fuel dependence is still big in Europe as well, and that's one of the realities that people have to deal with going forward.
It certainly is. Andrew Revkin, good to get your perspective on all of that. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks again, Lynda.